So, very special episode today. I am actually in my hometown for this one because we're looking at another ancient Nintendo Power related thing here. This brings back some serious memories for me, and I am talking about this guy right here, the Game Boy Player's Guide. Not an actual issue of the magazine, but I consider the Player's Guides to be like special issues, kind of. I got this guide with my first subscription to Nintendo Power back in 1993 or so. And it was one of those deals where you can get a free guide with your subscription. And I chose this one. It was either this or the NES Atlas or the Super NES Atlas. I think it was called something else. But the only one of those three systems that I had at the time was the Game Boy. So the choice was easy. This was my pick. And I think I made the right choice because personally, I think that this guide has a little more personality than the other two. I don't know, something about it. Look at this cover. It's just oof. You know, it's glorious is what it is. I'm in my hometown for this one, getting that hometown fresh air and kind of reminiscing a little bit, getting into that 1993 Game Boy mindset to review this issue. So I might take a couple quick looks around while I'm here. But before I go for any walks, let's get started on the book itself. So we've got quite the table of contents here. Very conspicuous by its absence is Metroid 2. No sign of Metroid 2. Very strange. No Terminator 2 either, but we've got these interesting Terminator hands here. And they're holding Super Mario Land, which is an interesting game. I'm going to be actually taking a look at this game sometime soon on my website. But that is beside the point. We've got some interesting enemies here, and you know how I like the enemy pages in Nintendo Power. Some very compelling bosses. I like the Moai statue guy. This was a pretty tough game that I had a hard time getting through as a kid. There's a Broken Tin, a cloud that conceals a chicken dispenser. So, and the chickens fly out of the cloud and attack you. Tatanga is some sort of goblin, like a blue goblin, I don't know. Not Bowser. Bowser is not in Super Mario Land for some reason. But in any case, we've got the customary level maps. Each world has 3 levels, so not the 4 that Super Mario Brothers was known for. And there are only 4 worlds, not the 8 worlds that you usually get in Mario Brothers games. So yeah, this was definitely scaled down from the NES Mario Brothers games. We've got Tatanga at the end there. Who is he? No one knows. I don't know. But I like how there's a room full of coins right before that. And I remember as a kid kind of looking at that room full of coins right there and thinking about how much fun it would be to fly through that room and collect all those coins. And moving on, we've got TMNT, the fall of the Foot Clan. We've got all 4 turtles there, some advertisements for pizza. Really want to get you in the mood for pizza. That's the only thing I don't like about TMNT is that it makes me want to eat like junk food. Anyway, we've got Rocksteady. We've got Rocksteady and Bebop. And there's a little code here. Look at that. You can refill your energy one time, but only one time. It's like the lay on hands ability that paladins get in EverQuest. Only one time. I guess Dungeons and Dragons did that first, once per day, full heal. Very cool paladin ability. But yeah, Technodrome. This was a game that definitely intrigued me as a kid because I was really into Ninja Turtles. But once again, I didn't actually play this one until much later in time. At the time that wind's kind of getting me there. At the time that I read this book, that I got this book and read it, Krang, there he is. I think the only Game Boy games I actually had at this point were Kirby's Dream Land and Metroid 2, neither of which is covered by this book. So pretty much everything in this book was like entirely new to me. Batman, very cool stuff. Here we got the power-ups, weapons. I really like when Nintendo Power covers like weapons, power-ups, lists of enemies. bosses. You fight the Joker in like his human form at the end of the first level, and at the end of the last level, you fight the Joker in his Joker form. So that's kind of cool. Although, given the Game Boy's small screen, you can't really tell the difference between the two. But regardless, yeah, these were all games that I didn't have. They were all new to me. And it was really exciting to just kind of read about this world of possibilities. And with that, I'm going to go for a quick drive. So yeah, here we are downtown in my hometown where I grew up. A lot of fun memories here, let me tell you. Got a nice blue sky. It's a beautiful day. Over here on the right, we've got the High Horse right there. I don't know if you can see it. That's where I had my first date. Yeah, it was a good date. I got lucky. I would say she got lucky, but that would be a lie. And here we've got Operation C, which is a Contra game for the Game Boy. You wouldn't know it from the title. And for a long time, I didn't actually know that this was a Contra game. I was kind of familiar with Contra. Like, I played a little bit of it at people's houses, but just a little bit. So it took me a few years to put two and two together, and mainly by comparing the guns and go, hey, these are the same guns as Contra. And then it clicked, and I was like, oh, it's a Contra game. So it probably would have sold better if they had given it a name that was, more in line with Contra. I like the fire gun a lot, and got the customary level maps. Some of them are vertical, some of them are horizontal. And once again, another really fun-looking game that I was intrigued by as a kid. And, like I said before, there was a real world of possibilities within these pages. And couldn't wait to try some of these games. I like the final boss here. He's got a cool look, cool animations. But yeah, this was all so intriguing to me as a kid. And honestly, I mean, in the present day, I would do just about anything to get that sense of wonder again. The sense of wonder that I got from reading this book as a kid, and reading about all these games that existed, and just, boy, yeah, I remember what that sense of wonder felt like, and I would really do anything to get it back as an adult. But in any case, here we've got Double Dragon. Double Dragon. This is a series I'm fairly fond of, and they've got the good guys and the bad guys down here. Got the whole list here. I think Linda's is probably the most sex appeal that you see in this entire book. And I think Willie might be smoking a cigarette, or it's implied that he's smoking a cigarette. He might not actually be holding a cigarette there. Yeah, I think it's just implied. But the cool thing about these level maps is that they tell you exactly what enemies spawn where, so you can kind of be prepared for that. And I distinctly remember as a kid reading this particular part of the book and kind of thinking about fighting each enemy as they showed up, and kind of like pretending I was playing the game in my head, because it was 1993 and that's what I had to work with. So here we've got Nemesis once again. This game is in the Gradius series, but it's not called Gradius, so it took me a few years to put two and two together. Once I had actually played a couple of Gradius games, I was like, oh, so that's what Nemesis was. We've got a whole lot of really cool enemies here. Surprising number of enemies for an early Game Boy game, because this was a fairly early game, as I recall. And yeah, that's a lot of enemies to pack into a early Game Boy cartridge. But yeah, Nemesis is a really great game. I played this as an adult, like many years later, and I really enjoyed this game. Come to think of it, I've played all of them so far, I think. Every single game so far, I played later on, mostly as an adult. I think Mario Land I got to just a few years after this, but the rest of them, decade or more later. That's about how long it took me to get to them. And look at this. If you have force fields, you can ram the mother computer until its diodes fizzle. That sounds really violent. Yeah. Now try it with full power down for real. No thanks. A lot of attitude in this little text box here. A lot of attitude. Whew. All right, so I'm at my school now. By my school, I mean the school that I went to in 1993 when I first got the Game Boy Player's Guide and my Nintendo Power subscription. This is it. We're there. It looks very different though, to say the least. This area over here, this used to be a whole playground. So like over there was like a playground here, and on the other end there was a second playground. And then there was some stuff over here like soccer goalposts and things like that. But all of it's gone now. I don't know what happened. Yeah, I mean the school is still here, as you can see, and there are still students. Not right now, but yeah, this is just completely different. Now I'll admit that I haven't been here in a while, so wasn't really sure what to expect. Over here we've got this weird kind of trail. I'm not sure what's down there. Like to this day, I don't know what's down there. I'm pretty sure it's just like a field or a farm or something. But I remember when I was a kid, I always used to be curious about what was down that trail. You know, the world was full of mystery, and I love to explore. Maybe that's why I got so into video games, because they really facilitate exploring, you know, a sense of exploration and so forth. But yeah, so here we are. Wow, here we are. Not what I remember, like I said before. Building is locked, so can't go in there. Let's see. Yeah, I have fond memories of this place. Well, mostly fond memories. A lot of not so fond memories too though. Here's the front door where the buses picked everybody up. Very cool. But yeah, most of my fond memories, the ones that are actually like good memories, are from the playground down this way. The playground is where all the cool stuff happened. I remember bringing the Game Boy Player's Guide to school with me. Nintendo Power 2. I would sit in this very field right here. And we're talking, how many years ago was 1993? 20, 30, wow. We're talking 28 years ago, roughly. I would sit in this field, back when it had playground equipment, and I would read Nintendo Power. Of course, you know, we did a lot of other stuff too. Did a lot of fun stuff. I'll tell you something else. This area over here, I'll tell you something. This area over here, there used to be like more of a playground over there as well. There was like a swing set and a few other things. And down here is where we would play Mortal Kombat. And I don't mean like play Mortal Kombat on the Game Boy or something like that. I mean we would play Mortal Kombat. Like we would pretend that we were this character or that character. I would usually be like Raiden, I think. And we would like actually do the moves to each other. Like we would pretend to throw fireballs, we would do uppercuts, all that stuff. We would do all this without actually hurting each other, usually. But it was really fun. You know, I would do the Superman attack with Raiden, and I would do the Ayobobole, whatever it is they says, you know. But yeah, so many memories here. Wow. A little more amazing if the actual playground were still here. It's kind of weird, you know. It's so barren. Like, why? Why did they take the playground away? You know, I mean, like, where are the kids supposed to play? You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know. Wonder when that happened. They decided that they didn't need a playground anymore. It's kind of sad. No, I'm bummed. No, I'm not bummed. It's great to be here again. It's just, wow. It's been so long, you know? Wow. Couldn't have asked for a nicer day either. So next I'm gonna bop over to the apartment complex I used to live in, which is very close by here. The apartment complex that I lived in 1993, where I lived when I first got my Nintendo Power subscription and the Game Boy Player's Guide and the Game Boy. Pretty much all of my early years in gaming happened at this school right here and this apartment complex right here, which we're going to go to now. So I'll see you there. And let's see. Next up, we've got Castlevania The Adventure. At least this one, they included Castlevania in the title. They didn't just call it like The Adventure or Adventure C or something like that. We've got a page full of enemies. I mean, I love this. I love how many of these games have like a full page full of enemy designs or bosses or, special abilities or spells or weapons. I love these lists, especially if they have accompanying pictures, which these do. And they even tell you how powerful each of the enemies are. Really, really cool stuff. And this particular, shall we call it a review? I'm not sure. There's the first boss. This particular review is extremely text heavy compared to the earlier ones. A lot of text in these boxes. And it makes me wonder if each one of these game reviews was written by a different person. Presumably, yes, because, if you had a single team that was writing all these reviews, they'd probably be a little more consistent. But it looks to me like they had different people handling different reviews because the tone is wildly different from one to the next, for sure. Here's Gremlins 2. This, I believe, is actually the first game in the book that I've never played as of right now. We've got the enemy page. I was really into this game as a kid. There's a spider boss. I believe that's the final boss. There were several spider bosses in this book, and I really liked spider bosses in video games at the time for some reason. But yeah, I mean, this game really, looking at it now, it really doesn't look like much. But as a kid, I found it like super intriguing. Interesting thing about this one is that it actually shows you exactly what to do in every level. So there's a line that shows you like the best route through the level, like exactly what to do. I think that's actually going a bridge too far. I think that you kind of need to let the player have all the agency, show them where everything is, sure, but don't tell them like exactly what motions to take. I think it's a little too much, but at least it's only in this review, I think. And there's the spider gremlin, very scary, very intriguing as well. Hunt for Red October. I've never played this one. It's some sort of submarine game. Never played this one and probably never will because I've never really heard anything about it. I'm sure I'll play Gremlins 2 at some point though. And Gremlins 1. I'm going to do a little Gremlins fest at some point. There's still a bunch of Game Boy games that I haven't played that I want to play. Here's R-Type. R9 rocks heavily. I'm not sure what that means. I guess it means it really rocks. But yeah, this is a fun little port of R-Type. It, I believe, combines stages from R-Type 1 and R-Type 2, which were console and arcade games, I believe, at the time. So, yeah, I believe this is mostly R-Type 1, but it has a little bit of R-Type 2 in it. Got some iconic bosses here, really iconic bosses. And I enjoyed it. I also like that it doesn't really show you too much of the last two stages. It just shows you the very creepy looking bosses, but that's about it. So those two stages are really left to be a mystery, especially that last boss. Man, look at how creepy that thing is. Really creepy. Speaking of creepy, here's Solar Striker, which has a very creepy final boss, which looks like a giant fly. Solar Striker is a fantastic shooter. It's vaguely similar to Space Megaforce on the Super NES. It's vertical, it has some interesting power-ups. I mean, it cannot, and it is nothing compared to Space Megaforce. That game is incredible. But, I mean, this is as close as you get on the Game Boy, definitely. Very cool game. And now we've got Revenge of the Gator. So that is another game I've never played. I guess that brings the total up to 3 games that I've never played in this book, rather. Probably won't be playing this. Looks like a pinball game. And here's Tetris. Everyone has played Tetris. I still play Tetris to this day, except now I play Tetris Effect on the PS4. Really, really great version of Tetris. Absolutely great. So relaxing, so much fun. Beautiful to look at, too. Got Dr. Mario. So now we've entered the puzzle section. the little bar at the top is gold instead of red. So red indicated that they were covering action games. Now it's gone into the puzzle section, which is the gold section. I haven't really played any of these and probably never will. So I like that we've got an enemy list on the side of this one though. See, that's the kind of thing that'll get me interested in playing it, even though it's like probably not really my style of game in 1993. If I'm looking at this list of enemies, I'm gonna go, okay, you know what, this might be worth a look. But yeah, so far out of all the games in here that I haven't played, which are mostly the puzzle games, I think Gremlins 2 is still the only one that I'm probably gonna play later. So yeah, I like the last enemy is a moving block. That's kind of funny. Here is Principal Quarth of Buffy fame. I don't know. I don't know what this is. Ooh, here we go. Gargoyles Quest. So now it's green. I think green means like adventure game. So this is kind of like not really your straightforward action game. There's a little more exploration, some RPG elements, so on and so forth. We've got the enemies right here. Very cool. Definitely have that kind of super ghouls and ghosts vibe to them. Very Halloween-y enemies in this game. And Gargoyles Quest is a fantastic game. Played it a few years ago and really enjoyed it a lot. As much as I can enjoy a Game Boy game in this day and age, definitely. And Gargoyles Quest 2 on the NES was also fantastic. This is one of those rare series that started on the Game Boy and then went to the NES instead of the other way around. Another one would be Kirby. Went from Kirby's Dream Land on the Game Boy to Kirby's Adventure on the NES. And yeah, a couple of fantastic games. Later they made Demon's Crest on the Super NES. Also fantastic. Probably the best of the three by a good margin. And yeah, I like how open the stage maps are in this game. And there are a ton of spikes. So if you're thinking within like normal action game paradigms, you're like, how the hell do you get through these levels? There's nowhere to walk. There's too many spikes. But you gotta think in Gargoyles Quest paradigms, where you can fly and hover and all that stuff. But yeah, here's Cosmo Tank. Cosmo Tank is a really fun game that I actually played very recently, and I'm gonna probably do some more with it one of these days. Probably do a post on it. And final boss, which we can kind of see here, is a giant spider. Another giant spider final boss. Very cool game. And time to go for another walk. So here we are at the complex that I lived in at the time, 1993. Probably from about 1993 to 2000, I lived in this complex. This area right here, this used to be like a cul-de-sac, and they had a little field in the middle of it, like a little round field. And I would hang out there with my friends at the time. That's where we would do our Mortal Kombat. And over here, this right here, this used to be a playground, like that whole area. Apparently it's not anymore. They took down the playground. What is going on here? What is with the taking down all the playgrounds? This is bizarre. And over here is the apartment I used to live in right here. Yep, right here on the corner. This is where I learned how to play video games, right here. And I can't believe this. There is a bunch of graffiti, a bunch of covered up graffiti, so that's good, on the side of the building. That is depressing. What does that say? I think that might be Antifa graffiti right there. It looks like it says fuck 12. Well, fuck you. Anyway, excuse my language, but this is depressing. Anyway, so yeah, this is where I grew up, right here in this very apartment with my cat and my mom and my games. And the cool thing about it was that we had this great big forest behind it, which you can see right here. This forest, well, didn't have this when I lived here. The forest was actually like a real forest. Like there was no real way into it. You could kind of like make your way in by like climbing through some brambles or whatever the case may be. So you could go into the forest and explore, but it was like treacherous terrain. Um, but now it looks like they greatly expanded the apartment complex, and yeah, they added like a whole new wing going back into the forest. At least some of the forest is still here though. But yeah. Yeah, sorry about that. Sorry about the little outburst, but I gotta say, it's kind of upsetting seeing like hateful graffiti on the side of the apartment that you grew up in. But anywho, our next game is Fortified Zone. This one's pretty cool. Pretty cool looking game. I've never actually played it. It's right up there with Gremlins 2 though, as far as things here that I'd like to play at some point. Probably will, you know. We've also got Disney's DuckTales. You know, DuckTales, everybody loves DuckTales. It's just a fantastic, fun time. This plays just like the NES game. A lot of pogoing. Finally, we've got Final Fantasy Legend. Now, this game, it really is legendary. And it's actually a saga game, but, you know, whatever. We've got the, what have we got here? The classes, I guess you could call them. We've got different kinds of monsters, humans, mutants. A lot of options for your party in this game. Got a big world to explore. This game is awesome. I've only played this game once, but I loved it. Played all the way through it. Really loved it. I'm surprised that they didn't cover Final Fantasy Legend 2 in this guide as well, because it was actually out at this point. But hey, I'm glad we got Final Fantasy Legend 1. I mean, it's great to see an RPG of this magnitude in these pages. We've got entire tables of information here, and some interesting bosses like Suzaku, Genbu, a few other ones. Very mythological names there. And you've got a lot of monster transformations here. You know, I've played a lot of Saga games and I still don't fully understand the whole monster transformation thing, but I digress. What else we have here? The weapon lists. We got weapons, armor, magic, spells. This is awesome stuff right here. I think this might be my favorite 2 pages in this entire book right here, because when I was a kid, I loved the idea of like creating spells and just like making up, you know, names of spells and what they did and stuff like that. I loved making up weapons and armor. I had entire notebooks full of just me making stuff like this up. So it was really cool to see something like this in this book that covers so much of this game and so forth. I think my favorite, there's a good wide shot of these 2 pages. My favorite sword in Final Fantasy Legend is definitely the Sun Sword. I love the idea of the Sun Sword. Just this sword that like glows like the sun, you know what I mean? Speaking of swords, here we have the Sword of Hope. Never played it, didn't hear good things, so probably won't. It got a sequel. It's an interesting game because it takes place in a first-person perspective. So it looks way ahead of its time. Like it looks like an actual 3D first-person game. But as far as I know, all these shots are just still shots. So it's not actually a 3D game, 3D perspective. It's just like a slideshow of still shots. So it's not as impressive as it looks on paper. But regardless, it's an RPG for the Game Boy, and it is fairly involved. I remember this part right here because this was when I was really starting to kind of get into the idea of RPGs. Hadn't really played one yet. I think the first RPG I played was Secret of Mana, and I kind of failed miserably at it the first time I played it. Had to like rent it a second time later and figure out how to play it correctly. But at this point in time, I was starting to become intrigued by the premise of RPGs and leveling up and so forth. I'd played a fair amount of Destiny of an Emperor on the NES at that point as a kid. So yeah, I was definitely intrigued by RPGs, even though I wasn't really into them yet. And here we have Ultima. Ultima is another Game Boy RPG that got a sequel later. I've heard mixed things about this one. I've heard really good things, and I've also heard really iffy things. But hey, this book makes it look really cool. It's definitely a very involved game. It doesn't hold your hand, which is a little scary. Here we've got the enemies, the Cyclops. The Cyclops is like kind of the big man of this group, the big deal. Don't even think about sneaking past these guys. But yeah, Ultima. This is an interesting game, I have to say, and the sequel is even more interesting. And it's something that I really would have liked to have checked out in the past. Like, I would have loved to check out the Ultima games as a kid. I don't think I'm ever going to actually get to them now because they're really time-consuming games. But yeah, it's something that I was definitely interested in as a kid, reading this book rather. And yeah, the sense of wonder, that I mentioned earlier, really crept in with these RPGs that they covered on here. Yep. And they leave the last two caverns to your imagination. Like I said, I like the way they do that with the last couple levels, last couple bosses in a lot of these games. They leave it up to the player's imagination, and that's great. And finally, we've got the sports section. Here's golf. It's golf. All right. Finally, we've got this very nice section at the end of the book that has a lot of mini reviews. Here's Battle Unit Zeoth. I played this game about 20 years ago, all the way through. It's a really cool game. Very kind of simplistic and short, but it's really cool. Kind of an unsung hidden gem on the Game Boy. But yeah, a lot of games that didn't get the full coverage in this issue get little blurbs here at the end, and that's really cool. Here is Mega Man and Dr. Wily's Revenge. This is a game that I really wish had been covered in the book, like in depth, because as a kid I was obsessed with Mega Man. So I saw this little blurb at the back of the book and I was like, oh man, because I really wish that we had gotten an in-depth look at it. I really wanted to see what this game was like. I wanted to see the later levels, stuff like that. Little did I know that the later levels in Dr. Wily's Revenge are extremely short. I think there might just be one castle level, which is kind of nuts for a Mega Man game. And at the end here, we've got these brown games, which are kind of utility games. None of those got expanded coverage in the book itself. Final Fantasy Legend 1 and 2. So right here, you've got proof that Final Fantasy Legend 2 was out at this point. But for some reason, they decided to only cover Final Fantasy Legend 1 in this book. I'm guessing there was a space issue. There were some space constraints at play here. But seriously, I would have probably axed a couple of the puzzle games and a couple of the sports games and included Final Fantasy Legend 2 in here. I think that would have been a really good call for them to do that. Yeah, Final Fantasy Legend 2, I think, is my favorite of the 3 Legend games on the Game Boy. I think it improves on Legend 1 in pretty much every regard. So it's very similar, but just huge improvement, as it should be. And Sword of Hope, Ultima Runes of Virtue. And here is the sports section. We like sports, and we don't care who knows. Well, here we go. This is kind of interesting. WWF Superstars. I remember reading about this one in a particular issue of Nintendo Power, and the other kids at my school were really into the WWF at the time. They really liked Hogan and the Warrior, and I believe Ric Flair was in the WWF at that time. So they were all talking about Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, and which of them was better, who would win if they had a match. But they didn't have a match, not until later in WCW. And that is pretty much it for the Game Boy Player's Guide. Just a tremendous book full of memories. Just really beautiful to look at and a lot of fun to read as well. And here are some of the other guides that Nintendo Power made at the time. You collect them all. I mean, they're all good. But I really do think that the Game Boy Player's Guide is my personal favorite. And it was really a blast to take a look at this book again and to talk about it. And I really enjoyed this particular episode, and hopefully it was fun for you guys to watch. It ran quite a bit longer than most of the other episodes, but that is okay. Whew. Man, once again, this is trippy. It's a real trippy day for me. Coming back to the place where I grew up. I had a little shed. You see, I can see that right there. Little blue shed. That little shed was always kind of mysterious to me too, because I didn't really know what was in there. Pretty sure it's just like maintenance tools kind of thing. But everything was a mystery. Yeah, there's this real. I had this real need to explore as a kid, and that's why I would come out and I would go into the woods here. I mean, yeah, we still got some woods over there. If I still lived here now, I'd be able to go and explore the woods if I wanted to. I wouldn't mind moving back here actually as an adult. It'd be kind of interesting. Every day would be like a nostalgia trip, you know what I mean? But anyway, yeah. So, school I went to in 1993, place I lived in 1993, place where I grew up, place where I learned how to play video games. It's good stuff. Glad that I could bring you guys along with me on this little trip. Oh, you know what? Check this out. There's this kind of lagoon back here. See this? This was really mysterious to me because unlike the forest, there's no good way to go into this lagoon. It's this long kind of stretch of just inhospitable terrain here. As a kid, I was very, very intrigued by what might lurk in this area, what might lurk in this swamp back here. You know, what kind of monsters and creatures. But anyway, I never actually went into this area, just the forest. The forest was a little bit less dangerous. Most of my exploration and everything happened in the games. So, good times. Good times. All right. Thank you for joining me. And I'll see you in a few episodes because we're going to go back in time for the next 5 or 6. So, I'll see you soon.